Here in the attic we like our mid-range builds. The best bang for the buck is always a welcome sight. In this project we're working with more mature Core 2 CPUs, an unusually designed motherboard and one affordable mid-range card. Our quest for the best mid-range build has resulted in 4 different variants. Let's dive in and evaluate their performance. The intriguing motherboard we mentioned is the Asus P5Q, which boasts a refreshingly short name. It's equipped with an LGA 775 socket, ready to accommodate the latest Core 2 CPU. Additionally, it has 4 DDR2 RAM slots that support memory up to 1200 MHz. However, utilizing the full capacity would be overkill for our intended purposes. This motherboard's distinctive appearance is due to its fancy yellow chipset heatsinks, allegedly inspired by the Sydney Opera House. These heatsinks are designed with thermal dissipation in mind, making them slightly different from their architectural muse. They are tasked with the somewhat unfortunate job of cooling the Intel P45 chipset. I purchased the same motherboard in 2009 and its outbridge failed in less than a year. As you can see, the southern heatsink is underwhelming and we can confirm that it runs quite hot. To address this issue, we've added an extra fan solely for cooling purposes. We're considering 2 potential options for our CPU, the Core 2 Duo E8400 and the E8500. The E8500 is a more mid-range option, while the E8400 serves as a budget-friendly alternative, being approximately 20 to 30% cheaper. Both CPUs are dual-core and come with 6 MB of L2 cache. They are clocked at 3.0 and 3.17 GHz respectively. We'll approach our build considering both CPUs, and we intend to perform tests in line with this approach. For memory, we'll use 4GB of CL5 DDR2 800MHz Geil Black Dragon memory we already used in few of our projects. We have an additional 4GB of the same memory for the upgrade we will use for newer games and benchmarks. For the first time, at least the first time successfully, we'll use a hard drive for storage, and an era-specific one at that. This Western Digital VD1600 AAJS is from January of 2008. It's 7200 RPM SATA 2 160GB drive. The drive status is at 100% healthy, which is quite a catch for a 15-year-old hard drive. In 2008, the nVidia GeForce 8800 GT was still considered more than a viable and a good purchase. But for this build, we'll have a variant with a more budget-oriented option, with GeForce 9600 GT. The one we have from Zotac is a beautiful single-slot variant with a blower-style cooler. On the sticker, it says it has 512 MB of DDR3 memory connected via 256-bit bus, but in reality it's GDDR3 memory. Not sure why would Zotac nerf their own card on the sticker, but there it is. While it doesn't reach the same performance as the 8800 GT, this card is legendary in its own right. If you were gunning for a pricier GPU in your rig, you'd probably settle for our second variant, nVidia GeForce GTX 260. Not for the hefty $450 that it did cost at the launch, but for a lot less after the price cuts. It has a massive 896 MB GDDR3 memory connected via 448-bit memory interface. GPU is clocked at 576 MHz and its memory at 999. The card is huge compared to the other one, being almost 27 cm long. It was really popular to run 2 of these in SLI instead of getting one cream of the crop GTX 280. GeForce GTX 260 was later in the year updated with a Core 216 variant, which increased the number of shader cores to 216 and improved the performance by about 10%. The variant we got is the EVGA Core 216 one, so we can expect even more out of it. This one was a late addition, but we got all the results for it nonetheless. At around the same price, you could get a Radeon HD 4870, but we'll showcase that one in another project. We couldn't quite decide, do we go with the more budget variant or with the higher mid-range parts? So in the end we have 2 CPUs and 2 graphics cards for a total of 4 variants. For simplicity's sake, when we speak about these variants, we'll mark those with E8400 with A and those with E8500 with B. Then those with 9600 GT will mark with 1, and those with GTX 260 with 2. Here is the full list of parts we used, for all of the variants. With the build assembled and working, we can start the benchmark breakdown. For reference, we'll add our 2007 mid-range results, and some others depending on the benchmark. In our first game, The Elder Scrolls Oblivion, the performance difference is barely observable. Still, each of the variants has 2007 mid-range beat here, most likely due to CPU clock improvements. In Crysis gameplay benchmark, we're slowly marching into playable territory for the very high 1080p preset. GTX 260 shows a significant performance bump in the medium and the very high presets, while we're CPU bound on the low preset. 9600 GT paired with better CPUs has 8800 GT beat for about half the price of an already amazing deal that 8800 GT was. We encountered a problem with E8500 and Crysis built-in benchmark. For whatever reason, its performance here was suboptimal. We did run it multiple times and tried tweaking drivers and options, to no avail. For this one, it's advised only to observe A variants. Being CPU bound, 9600 GT and GTX 260 performance are quite similar up to high preset, basically doubling in the very high preset. We added Mafia II built-in benchmark in the meantime, so we don't have any results from previous builds. There was a lot of variance in benchmark runs, so even average results have a lot of leeway. Results from both CPUs are once again quite similar here, so there's nothing special to observe. But GTX 260 takes 9600 GT for a training day, Alonso Harris style. In Skyrim, we have quite varying results. The game is playable on low and medium presets on all of the present PC combinations. Skyrim's game engine is kept at 60 FPS, and that's why we see many 60s here. Variants with GTX 260 make it playable on the 1080p Ultra, but all of the 2008 mid-range variants have shown better performance than the 2007 one. Newer CPUs with higher clocks do greatly impact the performance here, as is the case with the most of Bethesda releases. To confirm the suspicion, here are the results with GTX 750 added for comparison. To compare our variants with our 2007 mid-range easier, we once again used GTX 750 as an upgrade. This card was a perfect drop-in upgrade for all of these machines, as it managed to squeeze a few more years of gaming out of them. Following our nomenclature, we've added A3 and B3 GTX 750 variants for E8400 and E8500 respectively. We still get to see how well does the 9600 GT perform in 2013 Tomb Raider. While weaker than 2007 mid-range with its 8800 GT, performance is still good, playable on low and sort of playable on medium preset. In this title, 8800 GT shows its edge compared to our 2008 budgety mid-range card. But when paired with the same GTX 750, newer systems provide us with significantly better performance. GTX 260 and its B variants stretch their legs and show how much better performance can they actually provide. Once again, we got some consistently weird data for our E8500, this time only on the very high preset on the B3 variant. Here are the results for a few of the newer games that we ran. From now on, we only got data with a GTX 750 card, as all of our other cards are deprecated at this point. While GTX 260 is theoretically DirectX 11 compatible, it only supports the feature set of DirectX 10, so it was unable to run Witcher 3. Doom from 2016 requires at least OpenGL 4.5 or Vulkan support, but GTX 260 only supports OpenGL 3.3. As you can see, 2016 Doom and Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt benefit from the newer CPUs. We tried running Assassin's Creed Origins, but once again we had no luck. It definitely doesn't work with Core 2 CPUs. Here are the results for the synthetic benchmarks that we ran. In the CPU benchmarks you can see relative scaling that is consistent with the performance we got in our game benchmarks. Holy shit. Guess you couldn't go wrong while building mid-range PCs in 2008. As it stands, we barely noticed that our 9600 GT is weaker than 8800 GT. And GTX 260, which has shown great performance, was cheaper than today's budget cards. Better CPU performance made this build even more fit for later upgrades. especially A1 and B1 variants with their lower price tags. While stylish and great on paper, sadly we would not recommend the P5Q motherboard, as its overheating south bridge might signal an early death for it. Other than that, we are happy with all of the variants, as is the usual case with the mid-range builds. We will focus even more on the yearly mid-range builds, as they are our favorite kind. Hope you like them as much as we do. See you around!